Hey everybody, Dave Schmitto here, joining you from my office. We're at the central office of the Brandon School District. Just sharing a very brief video to give you some highlights and some brief explanations about the teacher evaluation process here at play at the Brandon School District this school year, the 18-19 school year. There's been a few questions that have popped up, so I thought it might be helpful just to share this brief video and explain where you can get some of the answers to some of your questions and how we're going to try to support everybody through this process this year, because we know with the laws that have changed here in the state of Michigan, it's forced virtually every district across the state to have to make some adjustments. And we just wanted you to be up to speed on what some of those changes are and how we are trying to address them so that you can get the most accurate, helpful, descriptive feedback possible so that you can continue to grow as an educator, so that our students can continue to grow, and that we can all just continue to change the world one student at a time. So first of all, on the screen here, you're able to see that we are in the midst of creating a website that will help to answer a lot of your questions and kind of be that one-stop shop for all things regarding the teacher evaluation process here in Brandon. If you are looking at the page that's on the screen right now, you'll see this is just the landing spot. It's just a home page. Nothing really cool on this page other than when you're here, you know you're in the right spot. Up at the top of the page, you'll see that there are some little links that you can click on, some extra pages that we have. And I understand some of those aren't going to be visible, so let me scroll this over here. So you can see some of the pages that we have. We've got the home page, the process, FAQ, scoring, and the Danielson. So let me just click very quickly through these just so you can see what's here, so you'll know where you want to navigate. The process, very simple. This one just gives you access to the document that explains the entire evaluation process to you. It gives you some definitions just for grounding. It gives you an overview of the Danielson rubric that is still at the vast majority of your final evaluation score comes from evidence collected through looking at the Danielson rubric. Literally everything that you could ever want to know is right here in this document. In years past, I know that there was a document out there that was very long, very lengthy. This is a lot of that same information, but also some clarity in regards to the scoring and timelines that have been adjusted, things of that nature. So I would suggest if you have some questions, you start with this document, the process document, just to give yourself an overview of some of the changes, enhancements, and probably answer the vast majority of your questions right here. However, if it doesn't, we've also created this FAQ page. This page is pretty cool because there's a link right here to a Google form. If you have some questions that you want answered, you can just click on this link, and it takes you right to a Google form where you can type in any question you have about the process, and we will provide an answer. We'll respond to your individual question, and then we'll share questions and answers right here for everybody to be able to see. So, for example, a couple of popular questions that have come our way in the last week or so is, can I really trust that the state is calculating my data correctly? And then you can see there's an answer on here about how we calculate state data scores. And there's another question on here. I heard that it's impossible to get highly effective if my data is only effective. Is that true? And again, an explanation and an answer to that question is right here as well. Hope that as we share questions and answers that people have, you'll start to get better understanding and you'll get more comfortable with things too. Trying to be as transparent as possible so that we can all just go along this process together and learn from each other. There's a page on here that talks about the scoring. In essence, what data is going to be used based on your subject and your grade level. So you can see how we are putting it all out here for everybody to see, whether or not you have individual scoring or grade level or building, if it's NWA, MSTEP, if you're doing the slow process. It's all on here for you to see. There's also an explanation about what a student growth percentile is. And again, the process document is right here. It tells you on page 11 through 18, there's more explanation of how scoring works. There's also a page up here that just takes you directly to the Danielson rubric. The Danielson rubric, as you know, is what drives all of the feedback that we try to provide everybody. It's rooted in the work of Charlotte Danielson. It's rooted in tons and tons and tons of research that Danielson has done on the topic of highly effective teaching, and it's the rubric that we're using to try to improve what we do on a daily basis for the benefit of all of our kids. As we go through this process, just a quick reminder to everybody that the purpose of this entire process is to give everybody feedback that will try to drive their instruction. The purpose is to provide feedback in the moment, to provide feedback in a timely manner, to provide feedback that is descriptive. Research shows us that feedback matters more than anything else in the learning process. And I just want to give you a quick example of how we are going to be utilizing feedback to try to improve performance across the board. Again, feedback is what works in your classroom with kids, being able to identify their strengths and their weaknesses. It's not about just throwing a grade at the top of the paper and passing it back without the opportunity to revise and edit and recreate. It's collecting evidence, saying, here's what I notice, here's what we can do to get better, here's what we can do to improve. Again, if we look at John Hattie's research, if we look at Rick Stiggins or Rick Wormley or any of the bigwigs that are out there that are doing tons of academic research right now, we see that feedback matters more than anything else. Timely, formative feedback. For the example that formative feedback is like going in for a physical, summative feedback is like going in for an autopsy. Can't do anything with an autopsy in order to improve, but you go in for physical, you can get lots of scores that tell you what you can do to change, improve, and get healthier and stronger. Our evaluation process is designed to be a formative instrument so that you can get feedback quickly and timely to improve practice. And if that feedback is quality feedback that's rooted in descriptions and evidence based off of the rubric, not our own subjective opinions, teachers can constantly improve their craft, which will ultimately show improvements in student performance as well. So I want to walk you through this. Let me move my little video here so you can see exactly what I'm talking through. So I want you to assume that as a teacher, your administrator has done 15 observations. They've come into your classroom 15 times throughout the year, whether it's walkthroughs or those formal observations. They've come in and they've collected 15 pieces of evidence on your performance, on your instruction to kids. And in these 15 observations, they've seen a variety of things. We all know that we have some good days and we have some bad days. There are some days where we're just absolutely out there and we're killing it and doing amazing things. And there are some days that maybe we're not doing everything that we could or we should. So in these 15 observations, your administrator has come through, and in out of the 15 observations, let's say that 4 of them on an indicator you received highly effective scores. That they've looked at the rubric and they've said that you demonstrated highly effective evidence according to what Charlotte Danielson's rubric explains as highly effective. Again, not their subjective opinions, but based off of the rubric. 4 out of those 15 times, they saw highly effective practices. And the other 11, they saw effective practices. Well, we're using a principle here called the preponderance of evidence. If you think about court, you go to court and they talk about guilty beyond reasonable doubt, or where's the balance weigh? Is there more evidence to say guilt or innocence? In this regard, in our classrooms, we're saying, is there more evidence of highly effective or is there more evidence of effective? Does this teacher, would you, if this was your evidence, would this be indicative of highly effective teaching or effective teaching? I'm not saying I want you to quantify this and say this is a 3.134. That doesn't tell you anything. Is this effective or highly effective? Well, I'll tell you that this is effective teaching. The preponderance of evidence is very clear here, that there's a lot more evidence of this being effective teaching than highly effective teaching. But you're probably going to get some feedback to help you differentiate what was different between the highly effective and the effective, so that you can then go back and you can try to duplicate and get some more evidence of highly effective practices and add that to your classroom. Let me click our slide here. I want to show you the next slide, because this one is similar yet different. Again, I want you to imagine that you've gone through and you've had 15 observations. Now you can see in this one still we have 11 examples of effective and we have 4 examples of highly effective. But I want you to notice that the pattern has changed a little bit. And the last one, we saw that these things were kind of scattered. So let's say this was your first observation, your second observation, your third observation, so on and so forth. You see they're kind of sporadic. Sometimes there's highly effective, sometimes there's effective. I want you to assume that this is the first, the second, the third, the fourth, so on and so forth. And with each of these, you've gotten some feedback and you've tried to implement it. You've tried to improve your practice. So at the end of the year now, you've had 4 consecutive highly effective observations. One could assume that you've been given high quality feedback, that you've taken that, you've implemented in your classroom, you've learned and you've grown, and now look at this. You've got it. There's consistency here. And the last 4 observations show highly effective. I would, in this regard, have a strong argument that this is a highly effective teacher at the end of the year. You've taken that formative feedback, you've taken those formative assessments, and at the end, the summative, once you've taken the opportunities to learn and grow and improve, you've gotten better. Just like in our classrooms with students at the beginning of a unit, beginning of a chapter, we don't take their pre-test and average it with their post-test and say, you're a C student because before you got any feedback, before I taught you anything, you didn't know stuff. At the end, you did. So now I'm going to give you some aggregate average. We say, you don't know it all yet. I'm going to give you some feedback. We're going to grow and we're going to learn together. And at the end, if you know it, awesome. Your score is going to represent that. You may have messed up and had some bad days, and you've gone through though and you've demonstrated mastery. And by the end, as long as you show mastery at the end, you're going to get credit for being a master. The same thing is true here. In this one, that preponderance of evidence would demonstrate that at the end of this, you are a highly effective teacher. We're using that same practice in our classrooms with you. If you show that you're learning from the feedback and that you are growing and improving, then that preponderance of evidence will show that you are highly effective in that indicator. And the same thing is true when we're looking at indicators and domains. We're looking for that preponderance of evidence. Where does most of the evidence lie? We're not looking at trying to give you scores all the time. Just like in our classrooms, we're talking about the fact that we don't want students that are chasing scores. We don't want students that are doing things just to try to accrue points. The same thing is true with educators. We are lifelong learners, and we don't want to be chasing scores. We don't want to be doing things just to try to accumulate points. We want to be doing things because we know that they matter for kids. So what does this mean for your PGPs and your data? Well, we are trying our best to make sure that as educators, you don't have to keep score for yourself. And I know you can't see this whole quote on here, but say in football, basketball, car sales, really any profession that's out there, we don't ask professionals to keep score for their game. We want you to be able to use data to drive your instruction. We want you to be able to be vulnerable and real. And if your students are showing that they don't know something right now, to be willing to say, my kids don't know this and I need to improve. We don't want that to be something that's used against you, because sometimes when we start using student data in this way, it makes us close up and not be willing to share where our strengths and weaknesses are, because we don't want that to be a ding against us. There are going to be times when your students are not learning what you are trying to teach them. We get that, which is why we have so many protocols in place to help us collaborate and get together and grow and learn and improve. Our goal is that by the end of the year, our students know more than they started the year with. Our goal is for teachers to be able to improve by the end of the year as well. So the data, the score, if you will, is not something that you need to be trying to keep track of. We will share with you your state data. We will share with you your NWA data. And if you go through and read the process document, you'll see that there's opportunities. There's a window of time where you can go through and you can analyze it yourself if you so choose. You can start looking at the students' names and their scores, and you can look at it. We're going to be fully transparent. But we don't want you to get yourselves caught up with having to get that doctorate in statistics or analyzing these big quantitative numbers. We want you to know your kids. We want you to know your kids' strengths and weaknesses and use that to plan for instruction. End of story. So your PGPs are focused on the strategies. What are you going to do to try to improve your student performance? That's it. It's no longer a negotiation about how much growth is appropriate growth and enough growth. We want all of our kids to grow in a year, and we want you to have a huge hand in that. That's it. So we're trying to simplify the process, really not trying to complicate things. So your student data meetings, this is where they come into play. When you start to see in real time your assessments of your students, we want you to be able to get together and grow and collaborate, whether it's with other teachers or your administrator or somebody. We want people to come together using real data to improve, not just to sugarcoat things, but to truly improve. When I go to the doctor, I don't want the doctor to tell me I'm in perfect health. I want him to tell me my accurate cholesterol number, my accurate blood pressure, so that I can figure out what I need to do to adjust and I can get healthier. That's our goal, every single one of us, to use our evaluation process to grow, improve, and get healthier. If you have questions, again, check out the document, check out the website, and ultimately, have an amazing day.